I want to tell you about the Sunday my mother told everyone I was lying. Not quietly, not in a moment of private doubt that she later walked back. At a family lunch, 14 people at the table, my aunts, my cousins, my grandmother, my brother, the specific gathered weight of a family that had known each other for decades and whose opinions of me had been shaped, in large part, by the woman sitting at the head of the table, my mother, who looked directly at me and said, "Emily has always had a tendency to exaggerate. What she's been telling you about what happened is simply not true." And then she moved on, to the food, to someone else's news, to the practiced ease of a woman who had just said something devastating and intended to let it settle without discussion. I sat at that table and I thought about the recording on my phone. Let me tell you what had been happening for 3 months. My mother and I had been in a dispute, not a small one, a significant one, about money, about a loan I had given her 2 years earlier, a specific amount given in good faith with a verbal agreement about repayment that my mother had subsequently decided had never been made. "I never said that," she had told me the first time I raised it. "You did," I had said. "Emily, I would remember making a commitment like that," she had said. "You must be misremembering." The word that people use when they have decided that their memory is more reliable than yours, and they would like you to accept that without further discussion. The dispute had escalated over 3 months. My mother had, I learned gradually through cousins who called to check on me with the specific energy of people who have been told something they are not sure they believe, been sharing her version of events. Emily is confused. Emily misunderstood the arrangement. Emily has always had difficulty with the truth. She had been building a narrative, quietly, efficiently, with the specific skill of a woman who understood that reputation is constructed conversation by conversation, and had been doing the construction while I was still trying to resolve the dispute directly. By the time of the Sunday lunch, she had reached 14 people. Every person at that table had heard her version before I had been given the chance to speak. I had known the lunch was a risk. I had almost not come. James had asked me twice on the drive over whether I was sure. "I'm sure," I had said. "You don't have to do this today," he had said. "I know, but it's going to happen somewhere. I'd rather it happen where everyone who needs to hear this is in the same room." He had understood. He usually did. I had the recording on my phone. It had been there for 3 months, waiting for the right room. I had found it. I want to tell you about the recording. 8 months ago, 5 months before the dispute began, my mother and I had been on the phone discussing finances. Her finances, specifically. She had been struggling. The details are hers, and I won't share them. What matters is that the conversation had been real and specific and had concluded with a request for help and an agreement about how that help would be structured. "I'll pay you back when the situation stabilizes," she had said. "I promise you that, Emily. You have my word." I had not been recording the call intentionally. I want to be clear about that. My phone had a feature, a call recording function that my colleague had set up for me months earlier for professional calls that needed documentation. I had forgotten it was active. The call with my mother had recorded automatically. I discovered it 3 months later when I was looking for something in my voice memos and found a 40-minute file dated 8 months ago. I had listened to it once and understood immediately what it was and what it meant. I had not played it to anyone, not to James, not to my friend Dana, not to the cousins who had called to tell me what my mother was saying. I had kept it. Because evidence presented too early becomes part of an argument. Evidence presented at the right moment becomes the end of one. I had been waiting for the right moment. After my mother said what she said at the lunch table, "Emily has always had a tendency to exaggerate," The table went to that specific kind of quiet where 14 people are deciding simultaneously whether to fill the silence or let it sit. My aunt started to speak. Can I show you something? I said. Not loudly, not emotionally. The voice of a woman who has been waiting for this moment for 3 months and has arrived at it completely calm. The table looked at me. My mother looked at me. Emily, she started. One moment, I said. I took out my phone, opened the Voice Memos app, found the file. This is a recording of a phone call, I said, from 8 months ago, between my mother and me. It recorded automatically. I found it 3 months ago. I looked at my mother. I'd like everyone to hear it, I said, so that the version of events in this room is accurate. I pressed play. The recording filled the dining room. My mother's voice, clear, specific, unmistakable. I'll pay you back when the situation stabilizes. I promise you that, Emily. You have my word. The table was completely still. Not the comfortable stillness of a Sunday lunch between people who love each other, the specific stillness of 14 people hearing something they rearranged what they thought they knew. My mother's face went through several stages. Recognition, the specific recognition of a person hearing their own voice say something they have spent 3 months insisting they never said. Then something else. Something that was not quite shame, but was in the same neighborhood. The recording continued. More details, more specifics, the specific amount, the specific agreement. Her voice, warm, grateful, the voice of a woman who had been helped by her daughter and knew it. I let it play, all of it. When it ended, I put my phone back in my bag. The room was still quiet. My grandmother, 83, sharp, the kind of woman who had seen everything and said what she thought, looked at my mother, said nothing, but the look said everything. My aunt was the first to speak. "Margaret," she said to my mother, quietly, "that was your voice." My mother said nothing. "That was your voice," my aunt said again, not as a question. My mother looked at the table, and I understood, watching her, that there was no version of this moment that worked for her. She had built a narrative over 3 months. She had distributed it to every person at this table, and the narrative had just been replaced by 40 minutes of audio that was unambiguous and undeniable and in her own voice. I stood up, slowly, deliberately. "I didn't come here to cause a scene," I said. "I came because I was told I was lying by the person who made the agreement in front of the people she told." I looked at my mother. "I'm not lying," I said. "I never was." And then I picked up my bag and I walked out. James was waiting in the car. He had not come in, my choice, not his. I had wanted to handle this in the specific way that only works when it is handled alone. He saw my face when I opened the door. "Done?" he said. "Done," I said. He did not ask what happened. He started the car. That is what 9 years of marriage looks like. My aunt called that evening. "Emily," she said, "I owe you an apology." "You don't," I said. "You heard what you were told. You had no reason not to believe it." "I should have asked you," she said, "before I decided." "Yes," I said, "but it's done." "What your mother did—" She stopped. "The recording, Emily. 3 months of—" "I know," I said. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Yes, I've been all right for 3 months. I was just waiting for the right room." My mother called 2 days later. I answered. She spoke for a long time. The version she offered was complicated. Not a full apology, not a full acknowledgement, but something in between. The specific verbal architecture of a person who knows they have done something wrong and cannot quite bring themselves to say it simply. I listened. When she finished, I said, "Mom, I have 2 things to say." "Okay," she said. "The first is that I will not pretend the last 3 months didn't happen. What you told people about me, to 14 people over 3 months, was wrong. Not mistaken, wrong." She was quiet. "The second thing," I said, "is that I still want to resolve the original issue, the money, directly, with a written agreement this time." "Emily." "Those are my terms," I said. "If you want to rebuild what happened between us, we start with honesty about what happened, and we document what comes next." A long pause. "Okay," she said. "Okay," I said. The written agreement was signed 3 weeks later. My mother's attorney prepared it. Mine reviewed it. It was clean and specific, and documented everything that the phone call had established 8 months ago, and that 3 months of narrative building had attempted to erase. My grandmother called me the following Sunday. "Emily," she said, "your grandfather used to say that the truth doesn't need defending, it just needs evidence." I said, "He was right." She said, "So was he." She said, "So were you." People ask me if I feel bad about playing the recording, about doing it in a room full of people, about the way it landed, and I tell them the truth. No. My mother had spent 3 months telling 14 people I was lying. She had chosen the room. She had chosen the audience. She had chosen the moment. I had simply chosen what to bring to it, and what I brought was the truth, in her own voice, at 40 minutes, unmistakable, undeniable, hers.